This conference will now be recorded.
Afternoon, guys. Welcome to today's webinar. We're going to be talking about limiting work in progress today. So quick housekeeping. Recording of the webinar will be available to you by link, and the link will be emailed to either myself or by Cheryl. Please take the time to complete post-webinar survey, so they'll pop up towards the end of the session. And try if you just want to type the questions. The last time we had a bit of issue with the audio, so it'd be best if you could just type in questions as you go along, and towards the end of the session, we'll just kind of try and review those questions together, pending the time I visit the office. So what we'll cover in this session, I'll run through a brief introduction about what limiting work in progress really is, the actual problem we're actually trying to solve here. So I've looked into a few of the team's metrics, and I can see why or where limiting work in progress can actually help. And then I'll go into more details with on what work in progress really is. And after that, I'll discuss the benefits of limiting work in progress and proceed to how we actually go about set the work in progress limit for the respective teams. And again, just talk about the expectations. So not for anything to catch us unawares, what we expect to happen if we do or when we do start applying work in progress limits to the cadence of our work. Okay. So brief recap, Agile delivery, three major key principles that are actually very, very paramount to what we'll be talking about. The first principle of the 12 Agile principles is to satisfy customers through early and continuous delivery. Okay, so our customers will be happy when we deliver quickly to them and when we continuously deliver to them. That's number one principle of Agile delivery. The third principle of the 12 principles is to deliver working software frequently. So again, continuously we want to make sure whatever we deliver to our customers continuously validated and they're actually functional. If the software is not functional, it doesn't make any sense to deliver to a client and they would not be happy with it. And the seventh principle, number 7, again, is quite crucial and sort of the motivation to actually improve the way we actually work, and it's working software is the primary measure of progress. Again, customers don't care about the number of lines of code we've actually developed. They don't care about the internal design of our code. They don't care about the cyclomatic complexity or the number of test cases we've actually got. All those details, no, they don't care about that. But what they care about is to ensure that we've got working software. And again, that is how to them that is how they actually measure the level of progress. And that's in terms of user stories completed, in terms of features completed, in terms of capabilities that they can actually start using and using to solve their day-to-day problems, really. So, an idea about burn down, we all know what an idea of burn down is, I expect. It kind of shows you the progression of the team during the sprint. So this is a sprint, an iteration burn down. We have iteration burn down, which limits the scope of the progress to the iteration of the sprint, and we have the release burn down, which limits the scope of the team progress to the release. But here we just focus on the idea burn down for a sprint. So on the x-axis, we have the number of hours for the tasks for the user stories within the sprint, or the story points for the user stories within the sprint. And then on the x-axis, we've got the iterations. So we've got the progression of the number of days, basically. And usually, well, in most cases, sprint will be 2 weeks. So that x-axis there kind of spans about 2 weeks, 10 working day period, right? So what we expect to see at the start of the sprint, what we've committed to during the sprint will be will be the whole chunk of work, and we expect gradual progression in terms of gradual reduction in the number of work that we've actually got for that sprint. And again, that progress is reduction in number of hours for the tasks for the user stories, or reduction in the number of story points that have been accepted, basically, as part of that story. So last week I was reviewing Team Sky Plus burn downs, and I thought we've got quite a few issues really. And it's retrospective as well. So if you see the sprint, so I took a look at the first sprint SO1, sprint SO3. Yeah, so two teams actually, team Star Plus and Team Perez. So what we've seen there, you can see the blue chart. The blue chart basically tells you the number of hours for the tasks that are meant to be done within the sprint. So as you can see, a gradual reduction. But what actually catches my attention, the one I'm more concerned about, is the green chart, which is the number of story points accepted, right? So when we're talking about the principles of Agile, what is accepted is the working software, basically. Developer might have done it, tester might have tested it, but if it's not accepted by the business representative, who is usually the product owner or the business analyst within the team, then it's not done. It's basically not done. That's not definition of done. And we're quite experienced with this quite a lot of times. Developers do something different, testers actually misinterpret the requirement, and it gets to the business analyst or the product owner who will accept it, and then they then flag issues, and it's got to go back to development. So we want to get things accepted. We want to get the working software completed as soon as possible, because ultimately that's our measurement of progress. So you can see the green charts there. In the first chart you see the green chart is the points accepted, basically. And we don't accept anything until the last day of the sprint, right? The second chart at the bottom of that, we don't accept anything until the last couple of days of the sprint. Again, it's not good enough. The third one, which is on the right-hand side, top of the right-hand side, we don't accept anything until the last 3 days of the sprint. So the last day, there was a huge hike there. That's when we try to quickly push things through out of the window. And that's the bottom right. So basically what we are seeing is, throughout the number of days as we're progressing, nothing is accepted. And until the last few days, you see that sudden option of point of stories accepted. Again, we don't want to keep things towards the end of the sprint. We want to continuously deliver working software. Again, principles of continuous delivery is you want to be able to discover deliver at any point in time during the sprint when a customer actually wants it. So you want to push a button, and whatever has been completed, validated, and tested and accepted, you want to be able to deploy it straight away. Now, without continuously getting things out of the window, we would not be able to do that. Okay, and the last chart there is kind of ideal what we want. So again, we want that constant linear progression in the number of story points accepted, which obviously in this case has not been the case. So what you might have the question, right? We're accepting this stuff anyway. We're accepting it at the end of the sprint. So what difference does it make if we accept at the start of the sprint, or if we accept at the middle of the sprint, if we don't accept anything at all until the last day of the sprint? I'll tell you what. So what I've kind of put together here is the systems thinking approach of the effects and causes of late sprint delivery, right? So what is the effect? What is the impact? What is the consequence? And what's the actual cause of this, right? So I have quite a lot of factors there, but the ones highlighted in orange are the ones I'll try and focus on, which are the ones that are more relevant to the discussion today. So just get my marker up, okay. And so we have here late software delivery, right? This is what we're actually, well, this is the consequence basically of completing late, of literally completing our user stories, right? So basically we cannot, we cannot deliver quickly, we cannot deliver on time, we do not have accurate measurement of our progress because again we're not delivering the software the way we should. So that's the consequence of the late completion of user stories, right? But what could be the what could be the actual cause of that? I've traced that back to stories delivered late to the QA. So what we usually have, what main cause of that, and I'm just speaking to the team as well. QAs will say, well, this doesn't actually, we're actually progressing the user stories and we'll try to get them sign up as quickly as we can. But unfortunately, we cannot do anything because it's not delivered to us until the second half of the sprint, in fact, until the last few days of the sprint, right? And that's one of the causes. So again, tracing that back to what I've just said, again, late completion, late dev completion. There was the you know taking them time for them to actually complete the story. Obviously, they cannot pass the story on the QA until it's completed. And that's the part that interests me most, right? And that's the part that's most relevant. So speaking to the devs, what are the major causes of that? Frequent text switching. So when a developer has to frequently change direction of what they are focusing on. So focusing on this now, next few hours you have to focus on something else, and tomorrow you've got to focus on something else. And by the time you get back to the first item you started working on today, you have some catching up to do. You have to try and refamiliarize yourself with what you were doing. You have to try and reread the code. You have to try and probably view refactoring and probably ask a few questions again to try and get to the level of concentration you were on the user story the previous day, right? Now, the other thing is attention divided across multiple stories. Again, when you develop it's kind of related to the frequent text switching, frequent context switching. When your attention is divided across multiple stories, then obviously it takes you longer for you to complete one before you move on to the other. So basically, you're trying to complete so many things at the same time, basically. And the major cause of those two factors is multiple stories in progress, which is the center of our talk today. So when you have too many stories in progress, uh, you then have a situation where the developers have to frequently switch their attention. So there's frequent context switching, and then you have attention divided across multiple stories as well. Okay, and that's the center of our talk today. Having multiple stories in progress is bad because it leads to frequent context switching. It leads to attention divided across multiple stories, and those are bad because they lead to late development completion. Late development completion is bad because it means we'll have to deliver late stories to the QA. Delivering late stories to the late to the delivering late stories to the QA is bad because it leads to late completion and acceptance of stories or functionalities. And late completion of functionality is bad because it leads to late software delivery. Okay? That's the whole idea of systems thinking. It is to show the entire relationship and the causal effect of one factor or the other. And you can see there, I'm not going to talk about the other factors as I've just said, but you can see how easy it is for a simple factor which we don't even recognize or which we deem as intangible can actually have a significant impact on the outcomes of the business, right? Just clear this right now. Okay, so moving on. So just clear the. Okay, good. So moving on. So sorry, my system just frozen. Okay, cool. So much work in progress. So again, looking at Team Star Plus uh, uh, sprint sprint last week, but this is what I saw. We've got 9 stories put into the sprint, and then look what we've got. We've got 7 of those stories in progress, and we've only got hits here very much. So we've got 7 of those stories in progress. We've got one that's been completed, not yet accepted, which is the third one, and we've only got one accepted again. And the only thing accepted is not actually a functional user story. So we see what the problem is. We've got 7 different stories in progress. Everyone is doing their own thing. We've got one completed and accepted. And we've got just one accepted. This was last week. This was just a couple of days before the end of the spring, right? So I bring us to Little's Law. Little's Law talks about the queuing theory, which tells us why having too much work in progress is bad, right? So Little's Law states that the average number of customers you have in a system is directly proportional to the average time it takes for it takes a customer uh, to spend in a system, and is also directly proportional to the average arrival rate of customers as well. So putting that into the context of software development, the average number of customers in the system, that is basically our work in progress. So our work in progress is directly proportional to the average time it takes the customer in the system, with that is the cycle time, and directly proportional as well to the throughput. Throughput in software in the real world context is the average arrival rate of the customer. Okay? So this is what work in progress is. Work in progress directly proportional to cycle time. So as your work in progress actually goes up, your cycle time goes up, right? As your work in progress goes up, your throughput actually goes as well. Okay. Right. Okay. So so this is just again from one of the other things which I just picked up on. So you can see what we've got here. We've got 5 stories in progress here. We've got one that's yet to be completed. We've got just one that's been completed, right? So again, we have 5 stories in progress. So we've got the red warning bar on top of the progress limit, and that's just to show you what work in progress limit is. So I've purposely set that work in progress limit to 3. As you can see that we've got five things in progress. So when we do set that up, when we set a work in progress limit, we usually have that red warning box up there, and to actually tell you that, and to notify all the teams basically that you have actually exceeded the um, work in progress limit for that particular. Okay. So what are the benefits, right? What are the benefits of setting up this work in progress limit? The first thing is reduces multitasking and task switching, which was just the fundamental um, factors we discussed much earlier on. So when we have a work in progress limit, we'll tend to then reduce the where we actually multitask because we try to focus on one thing or the other, one thing before the other, and that reduces task switching as well. And now, again, quick feedback leads to quick defect fix. So once we quickly when we'll start working on limited things at the same time, we'll quickly get done with them. If any issues with them, we can quickly try and resolve those issues. If it doesn't meet the actual client requirements, the product owner will be able to feed that back to us, and we can actually do the work quickly, right? Thirdly, it improves predictability and release planning. Okay, so again, what we then see is that it leads to, it leads to improved predictability. We can actually tell that, okay, you know, realistically, this is what we can complete within the sprint, and we can use that metrics to kind of use it to realistically and more effectively use it for our release planning as well. And again, when we're looking at the metrics, it does lead to a final improved burn down, which should draw more towards the ideal scenario, which I showed much earlier on. Fourth point, identify bottlenecks. I do areas. And again, when we start having work in progress limit, you can then see these items that are actually lined up and where help is required, and you can see the height and the actual areas that are actually hiding. So you have 5, 6 stories in progress. Nothing for the QAs to do, just saying that I do. Although ideally they'll be helping with they should be helping with the developers. Okay. So number 5, stories could be tested against fixed defects. Exactly. So so when you have any defects that quickly flagged earlier on during the sprint, and then you have stories that quickly fixed as well, quickly completed as well. Once those defects have been fixed, you can then quickly, you can then test the completed stories against those fixed defects. Now the problem with doing it otherwise is, you have defects that are not picked up until the end of the sprint, and you have stories that are actually been implemented at the start of the sprint. Now, what happens if the defect you fix towards the end of if the fix for the defect you complete towards the end of the sprint actually affects the functionality of the stories that have been completed earlier in the sprint? That's a problem if they don't then work together. So you want to get the defect fixed as soon as possible, and you want to get stories completed as soon as possible as well. So the stories could be tested against the fix of the defect as soon as possible, right? And again, number 6 there, you have an improved sense of accomplishment. So when you have this constant measure of progress and you are getting things accepted, and then it kind of boosts the morale of the team because you have better sense of accomplishment, really. Number 7, release early by deadline. Things stories are completed based on priority. Again, it's kind of the continuous delivery fundamentals. You want to deliver the highest priority stuff items first so that they can be handed over to the customers as soon as possible. So again, with things accepted as soon as possible, we'll be able to achieve that, and then we can deliver as quickly as possible to the customer. So lastly, work in progress limit reduces the amount of work nearly done. Again, nearly done doesn't make any sense to the customer. The customer doesn't care about that. You want to get things out of the way quickly as soon as possible. And limiting work in progress actually helps to achieve that. So how do we set work in progress limit, right? So we do realize when we have when the work in progress limit is too low, okay, that leads to people being idle, okay. So when you have 5 developers working and you have the in progress column to be 2, right? So you basically have 5 people actually working on just 2 items, and that would lead to high idleness, no matter how much they try and split the task by, and really no matter how much the story is big, no matter how big the story is. So you don't want it to be too small because it will lead to again people being idle, and what would that lead to? That would basically lead to poor productivity. You would not be get as much out of the team as you actually could. You'll not be realizing the potential really you should be getting out of the team. On the other side, if the work in progress limit is too high, you have idle tasks that are not being picked up simply because the work in progress limit is too high, and again that leads to bad cycle time. You end up spending a lot more time to get the functionality in and out of the development team. So as a caveat, what I usually try and do when I want to set up the work in progress limit is to make sure the work in progress limit for any particular column on your storyboard is actually less than the number of team members. So for example, you've got 4 developers in the progress column. I could tend to set the work in progress limit to 3, and so you have one extra person that can actually help the other 3 guys out with the stories, or you could set it to 2, basically assuming pair programming, and 2 people will be working on one user story, and that actually helps. But There's no fundamental rule to setting a work in progress limit. I just have to be very clear about that. Where in the next we should be working in an experimental environment where we can actually experiment and see how it works for us. So, fundamental rule to that, explore, choose a work in progress limit and sensibly so you think will work. Evaluate at the end of the sprint, doing a retrospective, have a talk about it, and discuss how do you think it works? Do you not think it works? If necessary, revise it, increase it or reduce it. And again, monitor that at any point in time if you think it's not really working. Again, have a chat with your retrospectives and how to amend accordingly. There's no fixed rules for it. Okay? So what happens when the work in progress limit is actually reached? Okay, so you don't want to say, oh, well, I've reached a work in progress limit, I'm not going to do anything. No, it doesn't work that way. So when the work in progress limit is actually completed, the developers should actually support offline testing. Okay, so when the work in progress limit is reached, the developers should actually support, the QA and say, what can we actually help you with? What can we actually help you with? Fundamental thing is obviously you need to speak to the QA. Again, you don't, as long as you're sure you're not actually testing your code, that's fine. You test your other developer's code, but it's not right for you to test your code. Somebody else should test your code basically before the parties that will do. Secondly, during the test, the developers should be able to fix any bugs that are actually discovered during the testing by the QAs. Then the developer straight away should get onto that and try to fix those bugs to pass it on to the QAs again. The other thing that could be done when the work in progress limit is reached, instead of trying to drag another story from the defined column, you want to then instead of that you can start reviewing the code of that's been developed by another team member and try to get that completed again. Fourthly, you can help to develop unit tests. Okay, make sure you have good quality solution. And again, what obviously one way you actually ensure that is to make sure you've got good unit test coverage. So if your work in progress limit is reached, you can do the unit test for your work, you can do the unit test for your other colleagues. Well, that's fine. Fifth is the pair program. Okay, so again, sit down with somebody that's struggling, review their code, make changes to it, help them refactor it, clarify things, clarify requirements with them. Sit down with them. To be honest, even if you don't do anything, even if it's just getting a coffee, right, for the person doing the programming, and just sitting down there, just encouraging them, that actually goes a long way. And lastly, there, you can pick up items to actually refactor, basically refactor your code, refactor your colleagues' code when your work in progress limit is reached. So what would you expect basically? What would you expect as part of what happens when you start limiting work in progress? And I tell you what, I've done this a number of times. Quite a lot of kickback, so quite a lot of pushback at the start of it, and it will be very awkward at the start. Believe me, it will be very awkward because now you're trying to introduce the culture of the developers and QAs actually learning each other's skills and supporting each other and being there for each other. So you have quite a lot of, a lot more interactions, a lot more pair testing and pair programming. And if you're not used to that, it's going to be a bit awkward at the start. Again, I've been used to that quite a lot. But it's just about letting them know what you're actually hoping to get out of that. And again, the ideal culture of the team should be everyone should obviously collaborate and they should be talking together. Fancy face-to-face communication uh, before ahead of any other kind of communication. So secondly, what should you expect? Again, as I said, be ready to experiment on the um, be ready to experiment on the work in progress limit. There is no fixed work in progress limit. Revise it if necessary and try and progress on that. Thirdly, get stories accepted ASAP. Okay. as soon as you're completed with the stories, try and pass it on to try and demo it to the pro owner and the BA to actually get it accepted as quickly as possible. Um, and lastly, there, for this to work, you need a strict Scrum Master. And Scrum Master this day is actually very fundamental to work in progress limits. So if the work in progress limit is reached, the Scrum Master should ensure that no item is put into that column anymore, um, and make sure that there's discipline around that. And if anyone mistakenly draws an item into it should be put back into the defined column, and then the Scrum Master they should be able to pick that up. Okay? But fundamentally, apply common sense. Rules are meant to be broken. Anything can happen. It's all about common sense, right? If you've got to do it, if you've got to break it, then you do have to break it. But again, you do need the authorization and the approval of the Scrum Master for you to actually go ahead and do that. Okay. So it's a quick one. We've been able to achieve what's expected, but again, focus on finishing and stop starting. All right. So stop starting, start finishing, and let's just really see how it works. But basically, I've spoken to Jenna and Tom in Team Style Plus, and they'll be looking into implementing this basically ASAP to try and improve the performance of Team Style Plus. Okay, right. Okay, so let me just look through what questions. So how to set up a work in progress number? Again, as I said there, Tim, there's no magic rule to it. You just have to experiment. Again, just what I've done, and again, it might be different from you guys practicing this. There'll be new things that will actually come. There could be better ways of actually doing it. But what's actually done, what I've been doing, sorry, and what's worked for me is to ensure that the work in progress limit is actually set below the number of people. Sorry, it's set below the number of people that are actually working on that column. So, for example, you've got 6 developers. I'll probably tend to try and set a work in progress limit to 4 at the start, and then iterate and revise on that. Basically, no fixture to it. Experiment, revise, monitor, and and change how as deemed necessary. Okay, Kemi, can you use a number of developers as work in progress? Right. So I've, to be honest, I've seen it done. I've not, and I have to be very honest with you, I've not actually tried this before, but I've seen this done and say, okay, if you've got team member, say Tom, your work in progress limit is 1. You've got another team member, Sarah, your work in progress limit is 2, and that kind of stuff. I've seen it done before, but I've not actually experimented it. I don't know how it works. I know how it works, but I don't know how well it works. So it might be something if you want to try it. That's fine. Again, experiment. Let's see better ways of actually doing things. But if we're going to do that, then it might affect the way our storyboard is being programmed, because storyboard is being configured in such a way that you can only set that work in progress limit per column there. So I might want to investigate and see how Rally actually supports limiting the work in progress limit per person. So yeah, it will be a very interesting one, Kevin. And I'll be keen to know how that works if you do eventually try it for your team. So what happened? For what happens if urgent defect occurs and the work in progress limit is being reached? So again, Pharrell, going back to the previous slide, apply common sense to it. Rules are meant to be broken. If something urgent, then you need to work on it, basically. And if we're using Kanban, there's a column in Kanban which is for to expedite stuff. So if you've got any urgent thing, you can drag it into the expedite column, and I expect any items in the expedite column is allowed to disregard the work in progress limit. So yeah, apply common sense, speak to Scrum Master. If things need to be done urgently, then they need to be done urgently. You're not gonna delay an urgent client fix. For a client that's waiting to get things fixed, simply because you've got a work in progress limit reached. Okay. Okay. So, Ferry saying, does it only work with Kanban? So does it only work with Kanban? No, it doesn't always work with Kanban. It could work with any methodology, basically. So you can use a Scrum. If you have a Scrum, you can set a work in progress limit on your Scrum board. If you use Kanban, you can set your work in progress limit on your Kanban board. So basically, it's not limited to any um, it's not limited to any methodology. Basically, you can apply anywhere. You can apply on any methodology, and you should get the right results. Okay. Can I say so? If there's any more questions, obviously, just feel free to email me, um, and share your experience with me. So I'm quite keen to see how we get on with putting it into practice and see how the teams actually react to it, and seeing how the results actually come out of it. I'll be monitoring the metrics for Team Star Plus. We'll be implementing it straight away, and see how well it works. But if you've got any challenges with it, if you've got any further questions, feel free to buzz me, email me, let me know. And as I said, Cheryl will email you the slides afterwards. And that's it. So brilliant. Thanks very much, guys. Speak to you soon. Thank you.